Thank you so much for putting us on the agenda. And we're super fired up. We're ready to be brand new 615s by June. And we want to take lots of people with us to the Go Diamond Leadership. Who's excited for the Go Diamond Leadership? Yes. Smoking Guns, guys. That's going to be so much fun. Who knows what the qualification is? Somebody just chat it out.
3.6 and 1,500 PVs.
Yes, sir. 3.6 and 1,500 PV by June. It's on June 20th and 21st. And so April, May, June, we have just under 3 months. And even if you're a new IBO on this call, I'm telling you, you can still qualify for this Go Diamond Leadership. So what I'm going to suggest you do is pick up the phone after SBS or maybe text them. Look at your calendar, text them a few times when you're available, ask them when they're available, and talk to your coach, set a game plan, and start working on your list A, your list B, or your list C, depending on which stage of phase B you're in, and start talking to people. The only way you will launch people, the only way you will create the PV is when you talk to people. Okay, so how do you talk to people? Now, I'm assuming you already have a list ready, okay? So if you don't, please have a list ready. But now that you have a list ready, what do you do? But before I start with that, do you want to add anything?
I just have a question for you guys. Who wants to ignite their business? That's it. I'm done. Back to you, Kajal. I told Kajal today, I was like, I'm not gonna talk. I'm gonna let you lead. You take over. You're the best at, you're an amazing teacher. And, it's good to hear different perspectives. I've taught on this subject, so I'm going to let Kajal do it. I'll fill in the blanks. But over to you, Kajal. We're going to just pretty much talk about the 5 levels of conversation, right? Because DTM MASWA was the 3rd and 5th level of the conversation. So over to you, babe.
Thank you. So yeah, how do you talk to people? So when you're talking to people, there's going to be different stages of a conversation that you will lead people through. Okay. And every stage has, like Matthew mentioned, a why and a how. Okay, everything in this business has a why and a how. Okay, so how do you actually take people through this these levels of conversation? There's 5 levels of conversation. The first one is to initiate. Okay, what is the purpose of initiating? I'm going to talk about the purpose and then the how of each level. So the purpose of your initiation is to look for friendliness. That's all I'm looking for, nothing else. Is that person friendly? Okay, do they want to talk? Are they looking at their time and running away? Or are they standing and, talking and adding to the conversation that you started? Okay, that's all I'm looking for. So I'm looking for body language and I'm listening for their tone of voice. And I will only continue talking to them if, I sense that they want to talk to me and they're somewhat friendly. Okay, so how do I initiate? I can initiate in many different ways depending on who I'm talking to. If it's my list A and B or if it's my list C, I will, for example, if it's list A and B, I will pick up the phone and I'll say, hey man, it's so nice to, get on a call with you. It's been so long. How have you been? It's as simple as that. Okay, or if I'm texting them, it's like, hey, how are you? I was just thinking about you. How have you been? Very simple. Okay, if I'm talking to someone who's in my list C, I'll give them compliments. I'll ask open-ended questions. Maybe I might ask for help, or comment on something depending on our environment, our situation, whatever, okay? But it's very simple. Or you can just say, hey, how are you doing? Okay, if you can't think of anything else, just say, hey, how are you doing? Okay, it's just starting a conversation, very easy, okay? And then only if they're friendly enough will I pass them on to the second level of the conversation, which is deepening.
Can I add something real quick before you move that? For people who are working in their A and B list, one small tip that can really help you is, especially on social media, a good way to initiate is look for, if you're on LinkedIn, look for promotion people are getting. If they're starting a new job, that's a great way to initiate. On Instagram, Facebook, birthdays, different holidays, different things that are going on. Be aware of who's doing what and what's going on in their life and initiate on that. So yeah, back to you, Gosh.
No, great point. Thank you so much. Use social media. We've already heard a lot from our mentors about social media. It's a very great tool to reconnect with people that we know, okay? Second level of conversation, deepening, okay? What is the purpose of deepening? The purpose of deepening is to build trust, okay? You want to get to know the person a little bit better. You want to build a little bit of a friendship if you haven't already built it. But if you're talking to your list A and B, you just want to catch up, get to know what's new in their life, what's been recent, and also let them get to know you. Okay, very, very important. So how do you do that? You can ask a lot of different questions to deepen. Okay, from hey, where are you from? If you notice an accent, to ask about their family, ask about their interests if they mention any in the conversation. Ask about their likes and dislikes. Ask about any recent trips you've seen they've been to. Anything of that sort. Okay, and then after you do that, finally you ask them about their job. What do they do for work, if you don't already know what they do for work. Or if you know what they do, they can be like, hey, how's your job going? What's new? That kind of stuff. Okay, people love talking about themselves, and they don't get enough opportunities to talk about themselves. So be the person to give them that opportunity and listen. Okay, people will love you for it. And then another aspect of listening is to relate to what they're saying. Not necessarily relate in terms of, oh, I know exactly how you feel, because sometimes you don't know how they feel, right? But comment on what they're saying, not just thinking about, okay, what do I have to say next? It's more about, okay, what do they need from me right now? Okay, they need me to listen and comment on whatever they're talking to me about. Okay, people who develop good people skills, they're very good at this deepening part of the conversation. So I encourage you, read the right kind of books, listen to the right kind of people, or the right kind of audios to improve on this deepening part. Anything you want to add, babe?
Yeah, so the one book that you guys should definitely read to improve, that I'm working on reading again, is How to Start Conversations and Make Friends. There's one concept got relating to Kajal. You talked about listening, active listening, right? And that's a skill set over time, because initially you're nervous. You're like, what do I got to say next? I got to share my story. But as you do it more, the more you'll slow down. Just like you're playing sports, you start to see the field a little more clearly, and you're able to listen and actually take the input from outside instead of just thinking what's next. So one thing they talk about in that book that I'll give you guys as a huge tip is called free information. Okay, you have to read the book. I'm not going to tell you what that is. Read the book. It's really important. So it's like a chapter long where he talks about free information and how you utilize that to really make that person feel valued. Back to you, Kajal.
Thank you. So third level of conversation, that's obviously dropping the MASWA. Okay, how do we do that, or why do we do that? Okay, my goal is to see whether someone is looking to move forward, if they're hungry and looking to move forward in their life with mentorship. Okay, not just to start a business, but someone who's looking for someone that can help them move forward in life. Okay, so my goal here is not to share about the what. It's solely to make someone aware of who is available. It's in the word, right? MASWA, making someone aware of who is available. How do I do that? Now, this requires a little bit of prior preparation, okay? Create a short, I would say 40 to 50 second story. Don't make it too long, but create a story and memorize it. Very important to memorize your story, and it shouldn't roll off your tongue like it's just natural to you, okay? Because this is something that happened to you, and it's completely true. You're not making anything up, but you need to be able to convey effectively the fact that you met some people in your life and you've earned the mentorship of people who not only have a fruit on their tree, but enough time to sit down with you and teach you how they did what they did, okay? So your story is made up of 3 different sections, okay? Number 1 is where you are in life right now, okay? Your current situation, occupation, whatever, and your why, okay? Why are you looking to do something else outside of what you're currently doing in your job, okay? And this will be something that other people might potentially relate to, okay? The second part of your story is who you met, okay? I got connected to 2 very successful entrepreneurs. Husband was a NASA scientist, wife was a civil engineer, but they were both able to retire from their jobs at a very early age. She was in her 20s, he was in his 30s, and they were able to build a business that allowed them to retire from their jobs. Simple. And number 3 is what happened as a result of who you met, okay, and where you're headed in life. long story short, I convinced them to take me under their wing, or I convinced them to spend some time with me and teach me how they did what they did. And now I'm, learning from them, and, in the next 3 to 5 years, hopefully create some similar results. Okay, very short, very punchy. And then after that, stay quiet and look for a reaction. Okay, you will get either one of 3 reactions. Number 1 will be, oh my God, this is awesome. Who are your mentors? How can I meet them? How can I do what you did? Okay, great response. You want this kind of response, but this will only happen, I feel like, maybe 10 to 20% of the times. Okay, second response is no response, or they'll change the subject because they did not understand what you said. They're not looking for mentorship, and entrepreneurship is not something that they've thought about or resonate with. Okay, that will also only happen maybe 5-10% of the times. But the other rest of the percent of the times, I'm not going to do the math, but the other percent of the times, what you will get is the third type of reaction, which is a neutral reaction. Okay, and this is, oh my God, good for you. That's awesome. Okay, so now this could also mean 2 things. That can mean good for you, I don't want anything to do with that, or good for you, I want to do the same, but I just don't know how to ask, or I don't know if this opportunity is available to me too. Okay, so how do you find out? Now you move them into the 4th level of the conversation. Before I move into that, babe, anything you want to add?
Yeah, just one thing to remember is really important. What is the purpose behind sharing your story? The purpose behind sharing your story is not to ignite somebody's desire to be an entrepreneur, okay? It's to see, when you share your story, how they react, and are they really already have that desire within them, that once you share your story, it comes out of them, right? I know our mentors are working with Kristen Emerald, and one of the persons she was talking to, my mom shared with me that when she shared the story, she was instantly had that desire, and it came out. She didn't have to dig for it; it was already there. Same thing. You have to look for people like that when you share your story, they have that excitement. If they don't, you don't want to work with them. You're just going to be having to drag them, right? I'd rather run with 1 than drag 100. Back to you, Kash.
No, so true, so true. You want to look for hunger. Okay, you want to look to see whether they're looking for mentorship or not. Now, the way I will find out whether they're actually looking for mentorship or if they're just, happy for me is through asking them qualifying questions. Okay, now the purpose of asking qualifying questions is to see whether they're serious or just curious. Okay, it's very important for you to know that they're serious about entrepreneurship and value a mentorship connection before you go into the 5th level of conversation, which is DTM, which we'll talk about. Okay, so how do you qualify this person? Ask them, even if they say, yeah, I'm thinking about entrepreneurship, I want to do something. Don't just say, okay, let me open some doors for you to my mentors. Ask them, what have you looked into? Have you started a business? How has your experience been? And if they've not, why haven't you turned this idea into a business? Right? Ask them what is stopping them. And there you will find pain points. And now you can use the feel, felt, found. Okay? Ask for, ask them good questions so that they share their pain points and they're selling themselves to you, not the other way around. Okay? Because remember, in this dynamic, you are the buyer and they are the seller. Okay? You have an opportunity in your hand that you can either give to them or take it back whenever you want, depending on how serious they are. Mm-hmm. Okay? And then, do they value mentorship? That's more important than what they've tried and what has worked and what hasn't worked is, if you were given the opportunity, something that Sunny and I like to say is when we got the opportunity to sit down with someone who had created a lot of success, we jumped on that opportunity. But let me ask you this, if you had a similar opportunity, what would you do? And unless they say to me, I would also jump on it, they're probably not serious. I want to see hunger. I want to see excitement. Okay? So those kind of qualifying questions that are very, very important to see whether they're, really, really looking for something or whether it's something that they've thought about, but probably not right now. Okay? And if they are giving me what I'm looking for, then and only then will I move them forward to a DTM or the final level of a conversation, which is dropping the message. Before I move into that, babe, do you want to add anything? No? Okay. So what is the purpose of a DTM? I feel like it's like the ultimate qualifying question, right? It's like, hey, now that you've told me that you're serious, I can sense that you're, ambitious, that you want to do something, that you value a mentorship connection. I can't promise anything, but hey, I can sense that you're very ambitious. If you, sorry, I blanked out. I can sense that you're very ambitious. I can't promise anything, but if I were to potentially make a connection between you and my mentors and possibly open some doors for you, would that be something you would appreciate? Okay. And here, what I'm looking for is a clear-cut, yes, I would. I would absolutely appreciate that. Not maybe, yeah, or yeah, I'd love to learn more about it kind of thing. If they're giving me those kind of answers, I will probably not exchange numbers with them. And I know Sunny had a very good conversation that it went really well up until the qualifying questions. And then when he did a DTM, it wasn't like a very solid yes. And I want Sunny to share what he said next to kind of solidify that yes. Or see if it was a solid yes or no. So
real quick, we're over time, so I'll just be very quick. So essentially, I did the DTM, said, would you appreciate if I opened doors? He was like, sure. And that, to me, was not a solid yes, right? But I was like, okay, let's exchange numbers. So I took my phone out, and in my mind, I didn't feel right about it. So I was like, wait, before we exchange numbers, I want to make sure we're on the same page. I know you said you were sure, but like, are you really serious about starting something right now, or something you're kind of curious about or want to do in the future? And he was like, no, I really want to do something right now. And then he actually started selling to me why he wanted to do something right now. And then I was like, okay, now we're on the same page. Great. Let's take numbers, exchange, and then move from there. So yeah, that's how that conversation went.
Absolutely. So the goal here is to build kind of this scarcity, right? I can't promise anything. I don't know. Like, I'm not giving you any guaranteed yes or no. It's like, my mentors are very selective. They only work with a selective number of people, but it's kind of to build that value around mentorship in their mind. Okay. And so now I say, before I do that, I'd like to hop on a call with you and set that expectation for a DC, right? I'd like to hop on a call with you because I don't know you really well. And before I put your name in front of my mentors, I need to make sure that you have the right kind of mindset before we move forward and, open those doors for you. So set the right expectations for a DC as well, or grab a coffee, whether that's in person, or set a DC if it's in, online. Okay. So with that,
the main thing is sit down with your coach and have a one-to-one session, writing your story, doing some role play. For example, we're working with, I know Gaj will work with Tracy. We're working with Chirag and Divya, do the same thing. We have their role play coming up this Tuesday. We're going to sit down with them and actually practice. They already wrote their story out. They're starting to make their list. So this is an active participation. It's like in basketball. You can't just sit on the sideline and hope to make the basket and get better at dribbling and shooting. You got to get on the floor, make some mistakes, and you will get better, okay? But with that, thank you so much to our amazing upline for giving us this.